I say this to the detriment of my YouTube analytics, but stop watching videos. Hey everyone, Will here, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna cover something that isn't really covered that much. People know about it, people discuss it, but it really isn't covered, especially with how important it is. Now, I'm not talking about color, I'm not talking about editing, I'm not talking about lighting. I'm talking about one simple thing that by making sure this is right, can make that photo 100,000 times better. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the position of your subject in your frame. Even a small shift can have dramatic differences. So in this video, I'm gonna cover, I think, about 8 different ways, and each of the 8 is 2, so technically 16 different ways that you can intentionally place your subjects in your frame to get a different emotional response, a different feel, a different just vibe in general, and be able to tell a better story with each one of your photos. So with that, let's jump into the video. Now for this video specifically, I thought we'd get a little bit creative and move locations in the studio to show you kind of in the frame of me what I'm talking about, as well as showing you examples of the frame in the real world, real photos. By the way, it's really hard to vlog with a full-size tripod and a camera, so I'm gonna put this down now and get started. Now the first one, and probably one of my favorites, is the position of the person with regards to the edges of the frame, whether they're facing in or whether they're facing out. Now, if you look at these 2 photos here, you'll see same person, similar lights, but one of the photos feels a little bit more tense, where the other one feels a little bit more freer. And why is that? Well, it's the direction that they're facing. When your subject is facing close to the edge like this here, the photo feels a little bit more trapped, closed in, tight, a feeling of can't get out, worry, things like that. You see this a lot of times in filmmaking. When you watch movies, shows, things like that, you'll notice when it's an intense scene and the main character is in trouble or having difficulty, their frame tends to be a little bit tighter. On the adverse side, when you have the subject who has open space in front of them, again, same in cinema and photos, it feels more hopeful, more alive, more like a goal or something that they can strive towards. This simple trick can really make a difference in the feel of your image. Do you want someone to feel tight, enclosed, or trapped? Or do you want them to feel hopeful, alive, and free? The next one is centered or off-centered. Now, when you center your subject in your frame, you give a more formal, more authoritative, even powerful feel. That's why you see it a lot of times in fashion and things like that. Look at me trying to be all authoritative. Now, when you go kind of off-center, you're giving more of a quirky sort of story narrative style feel. Like there's movement, there's something off, there's something unique, something different happening. It's thrown the balance of the photo a little bit off, which gets the viewer kind of thinking about. Now, this is great for movement photos and things like that to kind of give a moving feel. Now, the next one is very noticeable, and it's how you shoot your subject, what angle it's at. Camera height can completely change how we perceive the subject in the image. For example, when the camera is pointing down at your subject, it can really give a feel of vulnerability, feeling small, lost, or kind of a mystery. It gives kind of an intimate feel to your subject. However, a low angle or the camera looking up on the subject can make your subject feel powerful, more dominant, or more in control. So these are 2 completely different feels, and depending on what your goal is for your photo, shooting up or down can really change the feel or the emotion of that photo. Now, the next one's all about space. A really tight frame can make it feel really personal, really intimate, even claustrophobic, maybe a little bit of mysterious. It kind of draws the person in wondering, why are we so close to him? What's going to happen? It brings the person in and it makes them pay attention just a little bit more. Now, a wide frame, completely different. It gives more of an open, lonely, could even be like a quiet feel, or gazing off into the distance, kind of allowing you to imagine a little bit more. 2 different frames, 2 completely different feels. Now, the next one I do all the time, and it's one that really adds more interest, more feeling of curiosity, and just makes the image more enjoyable. And that is framing within a frame. So you have our frame right here, and then we have our frame right here. Now you can use frames, but you can also use doorways, you can use branches, trees, grass, anything that allows you to frame your subject within a frame. This creates more of a feeling that the viewer is seeing something more intimate, more private, and looking kind of behind the curtain at the subject. It also adds depth, layers, and it allows the person to kind of journey through your photo rather than just looking at the photo. Now, the next one is the difference between asymmetry and symmetry. Symmetry is everything is controlled, everything is balanced, everything looks comfortable and clean. Now, asymmetry feels a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more emotional, which can be what you're going for and can actually be a little bit more human. So if you want something that feels calm, more serene, go with symmetry. But if you want something a little bit more emotional, more energetic, maybe chaotic, or something that has more movement in it, go with asymmetry. The last one is flat framing versus framing with the depth. Now, flat framing is very minimalist. Just like this you see here, there's really nothing going on. It's simple, it's clean, almost sterile, but it has its uses in a lot of different ways. However, framing with depth is very immersive. It gives you a foreground, it gives you a midground, and it gives you a background. And it allows the viewer to almost jump into the photo and feel the story of it. They follow your foreground, midground, background through the image and allows them to kind of be in the photo. And it's one of my favorite things. You'll see many of my photos will have a foreground, a midground, which is where the subject generally is, and the background. But this allows you to bring them into the photo. Flat framing has its purposes, but depth framing, in my opinion, that's where it's really at. Now, with all that being said, every single one of those is completely bendable, adjustable, and breakable. These will help you create the emotion that you want. They have been tried and tested and proven true. However, I have seen time and time again in movies, TV shows, photos, people break these rules and they work really good. They create a different kind of interest because if you see the same thing over and over and over again, you get kind of bored with it, for lack of a better word. So when someone changes it up, makes you think, makes you double take, makes you look twice, that also creates interest. So understand how these work, use them all you want, but also don't be afraid to change and don't be afraid to break these different methods. Some people will be like, ooh, never break these methods because they are strict, they are the law, they are photo rules. But that's what makes photography great. It is an art, and people, in order to progress in an art, must break the rules and the bounds of that art to find new, unique things that people find amazing. So don't be afraid to experiment. However, next time you're shooting, don't just think about lighting or editing. Think about, what is the frame saying? How can I frame this to create that emotion that I want to show? Think of framing like storytelling. It controls the emotion, the perspective, and how the viewer connects with the subject in your image. If you can create that connection, your photos will elevate 1000%. Now, if you've learned something new from this video, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. The most important thing that you can do right now is take one at a time, one pair of framings, and go practice them. Because the more you practice them, the better you'll get at it. I say this to the detriment of my YouTube analytics, but stop watching videos, go find someone and go practice framing, because that's more important than my analytics. Now, if you want to keep watching videos, here's two that I think you'll enjoy, but don't forget to go practice framing, because when it becomes second nature, you become a better photographer, and that's all that matters. So with that, I will see you in the next video.